Hey guys, hope you all have been well. Welcome back to my channel. On today's video, I'm going to be sharing my Ancestry.com results with you. I've done 3 23andMe videos, the original plus 2 updates, and I've also done the MyHeritage DNA results. So if you're interested in checking out those videos, I will be linking all of them in the description box down below. But I was able to finally get the Ancestry.com kit sent my way. We had some issues the first few times I inquired about it, but it was sent, and after 2 attempts, because I think I didn't wait as long after I brushed my teeth. But the results are in. They have been for a little while. I've been putting this one off, but we are finally getting to the results. If you're interested in getting straight to the results, you can definitely move ahead. I'm going to briefly talk about my ethnicity background, just in case anyone is interested. It's your first time watching, and so let us get straight into it. I am from the Northern Mariana Islands. It is a chain of islands in the Pacific. We're about close to 7 hours away from Hawaii, and that would be to our east, and then about 3.5 hours from Japan. And so we are a lot closer to Asia. However, we are part of the US. I know some people are going to be shocked by this information, but yes, there are Americans out west, far west in the Pacific. The native people to these islands are the Chamorro people. That is how I identify. That is my language, my culture, everything that I've grown up with, everything that I've known. And I know for a fact that at least up until my grandparents, everyone was born and raised here. So whatever shows up in these results, I'm not trying to claim them. I will always just identify as a Chamorro. This for me is just a way to satisfy my curiosity of how everything came into play so that we ended up here. And there's a lot of history involved with occupation. If you haven't been made aware, in the Northern Mariana Islands, because it's very different to Guam, even though we are technically the same native people, we've had occupations with first Spain, then Germany, then Japan, and now America. And so I think that's what kind of goes into play when I start reading off my results, if you weren't already aware with how things are broken down based on my previous results. So with all of that said, let's get straight into these percentages. With Ancestry.com, they do things a little different, at least to the 2. Do you hear my chickens? Guys, I'm on an island, okay? If you watch my makeup videos, you would know that this is just part of my channel. Ancestry.com divides the percentages up based on the amount, and so it doesn't break it up into continents like the other tests do, but it's generally the same idea, right? I'm going to be putting up a photo somewhere on the screen. I'll screenshot the images as I talk about them. So here we go. Starting off with 55% Guam or Northern Mariana Islands. This is the chain of islands. Guam included is called the Mariana Islands, but all the other islands excluding Guam is considered the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. And I love that Ancestry.com had decided to separate the Austronesian ancestry, because in everything else that I've done, they always put it together. And the idea is sort of similar to grouping all Asians together. I know for a fact that I do have Filipino ancestry. I mean, I'm going to get into it in a little bit, but knowing what part of me is native to these lands and one part is from Philippines, I would find that more informative. So I'm grateful that they did it that way. But 55%, more than half of me, is native or indigenous to these islands, and that's quite exciting. I know it's still like, well, there's 45% that isn't, but considering, right, everything that I talked about in terms of occupation, to know that I've maintained 55%, that's pretty exciting. So like more than half of me is still native and indigenous to these islands. We have Northern Philippines at 13%. This is, I'm really excited about this. So in 23andMe, it mentioned that I was from like, or not me, but my relatives, previous relatives, were from Central Luzon, and here it shows that it's specifically Cavite. I don't know which side of my family this is from. It could be from both. It kind of makes sense given trade routes and all of that stuff. But now I really need to go to the Philippines and visit Cavite. I'm the only person in my family who has not gone to the Philippines yet, but I need to make it a point to visit Cavite and be like, my relatives roam these streets. And maybe I'll just include this for continuity's sake. I'm 2% Southern Philippines. There's no specifics in terms of cities here, but altogether 15% would be Filipino. Next percentage, we have Spain. Spain at 7%. On my heritage, I had 0 Spain, and that really threw me off because if anything, my ancestry, like European lineage, was Spanish. That's all I've ever known. And so when I realized it didn't show up in my heritage results, I was kind of like, what's going on? How am I these other Northwestern European countries that I've never heard of, but I'm not Spanish? It didn't make sense to me at all. So I'm gonna go with yes, I do have Spanish ancestry, and you know how that happens, that's a different set of issues. However, I've always known that we've had some form of Spanish ancestry, and this kind of solidifies it. Indigenous Americas, Mexico 4%. That is very close to everything else as well. I just love that I have a specific place now. 23andMe listed it as Mexico as well on the first test, but afterwards it was just Native American. And so it's nice to know that it's specific to Mexico, which makes perfect sense, again, given our history. 3% Central and Eastern China. It was only till the last, I believe, update on 23andMe that it showed the amount of like Chinese ancestry that I had, and for it to show up everywhere else, like it's pretty exciting. And then we also have 3% Basque. I pronounced this Basque, and I had no idea what this was. I had to look it up, truthfully, and from my very brief understanding, it is sort of the border area between Spain and France, and there's a mountainous area, starts with the letter P, I forget what it was, but there is a population of this area. I don't know if it still currently exists. Again, I didn't read too much into it, but this might explain a story that I'm going to tell you at the end of this video. If you had seen my thumbnail, you'll notice that there's a picture of this old man that is going to be related to the story I'm going to tell you about that I've learned through, well, miracle. Next, we have Scotland at 3%. I was really thinking that my heritage results were just, it was just a scam, because I had the DNA, I think it was 6% Scottish, Irish, Welsh. They put them all together, and I have 3% Scottish and 2% Welsh. So I guess there is truth to it. Funny thing though, the Scottish is from one of my parents, and then the Welsh is from another. What's going on, guys? What happened? I have 2% Southern China, so altogether we have 5% Chinese. Again, I spoke about the Southern Philippines at 2%, so altogether 15% Filipino. Then everything else is just like 1%, 1%, 1%. So we have 1% Southern Indian, 1% Bengal, so I think that's like northeastern part of India, so 2% altogether. I have 1% Japan, and then another 1% Southern Japanese islands, so I'm guessing that's like Okinawa. Then we have 1% Jewish, which shows up in previous tests as well. Then this one is the first for me, 1% Portugal. Maybe it's just like border area close to Spain. Maybe, I don't know. Then I have less than 1% Korea and less than 1% Malta. I had an idea of where Malta was, but I wanted to look on the internet to make sure. And I don't know if this goes back to the Northern African ancestry that I have on like 23andMe, but there seems to be a common makeup with Chamorro people. And I'm not saying all, but there's certain features that I see repetitively with other relatives that I see on these different ancestry sites. And it's always like large chunk Austronesian. And then the next biggest chunk is like some sort of Spanish with a little bit of other European. And then you'll have the Native American. And then you have a little bit of North African. That's generally the composition. And so that is it. It looks like a long list, but it's a long list of like a lot of small percentages. This is very similar to my 23andMe. It looks like a long list of things, but it's like 4% here and 2% there and 5% here. I actually prefer this because it does a great job at differentiating even within countries, and I like specifics. So this is really nice. And so my takeaway from these 3 different tests is that my Asian results are fairly accurate across the board. In terms of the European ancestry, I guess I do have Northwestern ancestry. I still have my doubts about it. Okay, so those are my ancestry results. Take it as you will. Again, I need to reinforce the fact that I'm not trying to identify with these things. It's cool to know, but I am a Chamorro at heart. That is what I will always feel myself to be. It's the only culture I've ever known. So let's get into a story time. I get a notification on my email account that says we have some new family records that you can come and check out. And so I click on it, and this is from a website. It's not one of the 3 ancestry websites. This is something that I signed up for because I did a course on like family trees and things of that sort. So you had access to different types of records. I find out that on my paternal grandmother's side, so my father's mother, I'm going to try my best to explain this. So her father, my great-grandfather, his mother, so my second great-grandmother, she was born in the Philippines. I don't know if I want to say names because it's just, I don't know, I'm not comfortable. Just know that there are records of this is where they were born on this day, so on and so forth. So second great-grandmother, born in the Philippines. And we'll end up getting to how this all ended up coming here. Her mother was from the Philippines. Her father was a French military, hold on, I don't want to give misinformation here. Yes, he was a French military officer who served as a commander during the French Revolutionary War and the Peninsular War. So that would make him my 3rd great-grandfather. Mr. 3rd great-grandfather is from France. I actually have the place of where he was born and where he died. I even looked it up, and it is the southern part of France, which brings me back to the whole Basque percentages. Maybe this is why I have so many French relatives on my MyHeritage. If you watch that video, you'll see that I'm like, why is the second largest group of my DNA relatives France? I have no connection to France. Ta-da! Maybe it just doesn't show up on my DNA, but I have ancestry. So French military 3rd great-grandfather, at the end of his military career, decided to travel through the Mariana Islands, the Philippines. He goes to the Philippines and he meets a lady, as he met other ladies as well, and had children. I remember reading that these women and these children ended up on his ship, but would depart in different places. But when it came to my second great-grandmother, his daughter, he had her with a woman in the Philippines. And according to the research that I've done, my second great-grandmother is the only out of wedlock child that he had ever claimed. And the reason might crawl under your skin, but the only reason he claimed her is because she looked like him. I know. We can unpack that a different day. Second great-grandmother had gone on the ship as well, and he was very fond of her. They traveled all the way to Guam, and what happened was she fell in love with a shipmate. The shipmate ended up staying in Guam, and she was meant to return to France with her dad. But she decided, no, I want to stay here and be with this man that I love. So she ended up staying on Guam, but the man ended up passing away. The ship member had passed away, and she ended up remarrying. And so she had my great-grandfather, and this was in Guam. Then my great-grandfather moved to Saipan, had my grandmother had my father had me. This explains why I have French relatives. And the funny thing is that I've always wondered why my grandmother's siblings, particularly this great uncle, he did not look local. Like, he looked white. Not just his color, but even his features. This explains it, because he kind of looks similar to that guy, the Mr. French guy. They look the same. But anyways, that is my results. That is my story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to share your results, please leave them down below. If you have stories in your tomorrow as well, I would love to hear them. And I hope that you all have a wonderful day. Take care, guys. Bye.